Welcome to Touch Revolution, the podcast where the value of thoughtful, helpful, and ethical touch is fully realized. Brought to you by Kincaid Institute of Healing, a rigorous massage school and clinic. Join us on this journey as we delve into the world of touch therapy, exploring its powerful effects on the mind, body, and soul. So, get ready to embark on a captivating exploration of touch therapy. It's time to revolutionize the way we heal, one soothing touch at a time.
Welcome to Touch Revolution. My name is John James, and I'm here with my co-host, Megan Prichard, and we are sponsored by Kincaid Institute of Healing. Kincaid is a massage school and a massage clinic that's been in the North Dallas area for 20 years. We train 60 students a year. We see about 800 patients a month, and that's not what's most important here today. We have wonderful guests here from Wonderfully Made Wellness Sanctuary. First of all, the owner of Wonderfully Made Wellness Sanctuary is my wife, Michelle Rowton. And we have Juli Kincaid here as well, who's a family nurse practitioner. And welcome, guys. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
So before we go any further, we just want to talk to you guys a little bit about what it's like to been working with you guys.
So I know both of you guys, of course, professionally, but as well as personally. So super much an honor to see you guys like in this facet. And Julie, like I've gotten to see you like grow and bloom, and like to see you guys together. I'm just like, oh, like fangirl over the moon, kind of stoked. So it's so perfect. So I've worked with both of y'all, of course, personally, but as well as like your patients. So you are wonderful, generous referring providers to us at Kincaid. And we cannot thank you enough for that. So to see the dynamic of what y'all serve, so you with your babies and you kind of with all of it, like it's amazing for holistic health and women's health now as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so
y'all are
much
amazing.
for having us.
Yeah, no, just so much brilliance right here.
We really enjoy working with you guys. We like the back and forth referrals. One of the things we like about you guys is how you always involve other practitioners. You don't have, I noticed you don't ever have somebody in isolation. And Western medicine loves to isolate their patient. Mm-hmm. And so we really appreciate that about you. So thank you so much. So let's start with you, Michelle. I know a little bit about this, but how did this happen? How did a neonatal nurse practitioner end up in private practice? I don't know of another one. Maybe there is, but talk to me about what happened.
Well, I worked in the hospital for 14 years. I always wanted to work in the neonatal ICU. I've loved babies my whole life. I always wanted to be, I tell people it's probably somewhere, my mom has it, but like, I'm going to be a neonatal nurse practitioner and I'm going to fly in helicopters to go pick up sick babies and bring them back into town or whatever it is, right? And so I did all that, but while I was in college, I was very, very, very sick. And I was a very sick kid. I was diagnosed with 3 autoimmune diseases by the age of 29. And so finally I got to the point where I thought, the only person who's going to fix me is me. I haven't found anyone who's been helpful other than when I was in college. I did see an internal medicine doctor turned homeopathist, and he really helped me a lot. He was, I think, the 9th or 10th doctor I had been to. Wow. So when I was in the hospital working 24-hour shifts, if I was in a small hospital, obviously not Bumpsy, not Baylor, Dallas, but like one of the small NICUs, there's a lot of downtime. And so all the other practitioners were sleeping or watching movies or reading fiction or whatever they were doing, and I was studying. And so I got to the point where I started kind of phasing myself out of the hospital because really my ethics and my morals didn't line up with a lot of things that happened there. When you have a baby that's dying, I love that all day. I can do all of the procedures. I'm good under pressure. I have good intuition, all of those things, but that only is a short period of time. And then you get to the convalescent phase where, you know, we're just growing them to go home. And there's a lot of things that really just didn't resonate with me. And so I ran a functional medicine program for adults, for a chiropractor. And I learned a lot more stuff there. I taught all of the classes for all the adults down to teaching a class in the local grocery store. Yeah. So, I mean, from the ground up, helping those people change. And then the pediatrician came along who practices functional medicine and basically gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I quit the hospital and I quit running the program for the adults and went to work for her. And then when Jason was born, John and I decided that I wasn't going to go back to the hospital. And I decided that I was going to work in an office where I didn't have to deal with things that I did not want to deal with, that didn't line up for me ethically. I definitely was going to have a lot of windows in my office because I was tired of like living in a cave between the hospital and the pediatrician office where there were no windows in the back, which we definitely pulled off. And that I was going to own the practice and it was going to be cash pay because I didn't want insurance telling me what to do. I didn't want to cattle drive people, see people for 7 minutes, maybe 15. If I was lucky, I'm going to see people either for 30 minutes or for 60 minutes. And so that's what I did.
And that's so unique. I mean, like, that's incredibly hard to replicate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got pocket docs, 15 minutes, in and out, no eye contact, no physical contact, check marks all over the place. So just to actually connect with someone on a personal level and hear them and see them, it's invaluable these days.
Well, and two, I don't have staff, right? So when you go into other offices, I say the nursing staff, but they're usually not nurses. They're usually medical assistants or asking you the questions, filling out all the things, doing the measurements and the weight, all of the stuff. Then I come in, I have to look at it, but then I kind of repeat the questions again. It's very annoying. Parents don't like it. And plus I'm missing out on a lot of intake and a lot of observation and a lot of time to figure out what's really going on. I have play mats in the office, so the kids are playing on the floor so I can watch them for the entire time they're in there. I pick up on a lot of things that way.
Something that's notable, having been there during all of this time, is you went from a really nice income and a nice work schedule.
The 7 24-hour shifts a month. Was pretty
that
cool.
that was our life back then, and you traded that for doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a long time where I think both of us just we just did it because it needed to be really obvious to override the convenience that was our old life, right? And
I still have moments where I'm like, remember how on the weekends we would just like hang out outside on a blanket, and why are we so busy now? Of course, we just had Nick. Nick was like in high school. He was gone. We didn't have young kids again. But we both, we didn't both own our own businesses.
I had a very simple practice, small practice, and you worked for someone else, and you traded that. At some point, we couldn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's amazing. It's not easy. It's not an easy way to do it. Anytime we're trading for self-employment, there's this kind of 24/7 kind of feeling about it,
There were years that people kept telling me, you need to open your own business, you need to do your own thing. And I'm like,
including
no.
me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So first I studied business for a few years, and I really had to be ready to do it. And so it's totally worth it. But, sometimes random things happen and suddenly it's very stressful again. And it's a lot.
Can we talk about we both studied business with the same company. Can you kind of cover that real quick? And then we'll talk to Juli for a second and see where she came from. So we both were looking for business training and found a company out of Ojai, California at the time. They're in where are they now? Ventura. At the time, they were called Influence Ecology. They're now called Influential U, but kind of a privatized MBA kind of feeling. I spent 8 years training there and completed all their programs, and then you probably spent 6 years and completed all of those same programs.
Yes,
now it sounds like it took me 8 years and it took her 6 years. They hadn't written all of the work, so a lot of times we were waiting on the next paper, I guess.
Yeah, the 1 year program I did, the 6-month program I did while I was working in for the pediatrician. I was pregnant with Julia. The 1 year program I did while Jason was a baby.
Right.
And then the 2 year program I finished by the skin of my teeth, like as I was delivering Victoria.
Right.
So I kind of had to just shove those in there when I could get them in there while I'm busy, populating the earth. So, which is like, it was hard because they always were very respectful to me. But a lot of men in that program,
Right.
and a lot of women, but they either, like, I remember one time this lady, they're like, oh, she just had a baby too. And Jason was a baby and we were there for a conference. I'm like, oh, where's your baby? Or she said, oh, she's 6 months old. She's at home.
Yeah.
This is a week-long practice. I'm like, oh, we're not the same person.
We're not the same people.
I can't do that. Like, my kids are right there and I brought somebody to watch them, so
Well,
yeah.
so there's a lot of different things that have happened to create this reality we're living in now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of populating the world, Julie, Julie, tell us about you. We've known you 16 years. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, 16
Because you were
17.
18 or 19. You were
Yeah,
not.
because it was shortly before I had my first son, who's 15 now. So
Yeah.
Our whole story is pretty amazing. It was kind of I look at it as like a divine, meeting, just because it was so long ago. Before I entered the holistic world, and I got a job at Rick's Chop House in downtown McKinney. I was a waitress and working through nursing school, and in walked Michelle and John, and they would come and dine there, and they became kind of my regulars, I guess you could call it. And they've always been so generous, great tippers, by the way. And just, I remember Michelle would just kind of drop these truth bombs, and I thought she was so interesting and intriguing, and I still think that today. But I just remember being like, I've never really, in any circle of influence, I've never heard some of the things that you guys would talk about.
Right.
Which just kind of speaks to the fact that you've kind of been doing this for a long time, and you have both been so consistent in it. And I think one of the things I admire about you both is that you really walk the walk. You don't just talk about it. You don't just tell people to change their diet. You don't just tell people to do these things that you guys aren't living out. And it's just, I really respect that. But some of the things Michelle would say, I just go and look up, and I'd start to research. And I just thought it was so interesting. So it kind of started to shape, my view on a lot of things. And so I remember actually you said too, you also encouraged me to go to nurse practitioner school. So I was in nursing school at the time. So that's a big reason I went all the way to through grad school and became a nurse practitioner. So, but I just remember working bedside at a big hospital and thinking, man, these people aren't getting better, and they're not healing. They're on a lot of meds, and they're just eating all the junk food that the hospital was providing. And I just knew I wanted to do different and help people in a different way. And so it just really shaped my journey. Funny story, actually. I was in my workout and protein shake era while I was working at Rick's, and I remember Michelle came in and she was just like, yeah, I think people should just chew their food. And it's so funny because we were working the other day, and she was saying, it's just so interesting that moms give their kids these pouches all the time. I just think that they need to chew their food and stop sucking these pouches. And so she's still saying a lot of the same things she was saying back then.
That really made me, I'm like, I think it's the pouches, they squeeze and they suck and they get addicted. And then they're like, well, but he won't eat vegetables, or he doesn't eat very much. So at least this way he's getting vegetables. I'm like, literally, he will never eat vegetables if he's on pouches. He has to chew his food, and the foods have to be separate. And so she brought that up the other day. I thought, oh my gosh, is that funny? Or am I just like a broken record? I'm like, I don't know. I think they should just chew their food.
Well, it sounds so crazy to say things like that, right? People are like, why? But if you really think about holistic health is the whole body, and it starts with our senses. You need to smell your food. You need to start secreting salivary amylase so you can break your food down, and then you have to chew. And so it's like a whole process. And so, yeah, it sounds really funny at first.
It's like it was designed that way.
I mean, like it's meant to be that way.
Like it's
I would
meant
just
to be
go
that
back
way.
to, if you're a hunter and gatherer running around, where are you getting these pureed things you're just sucking up? Nowhere.
That's always a good test. What were the hunter and gatherers doing? They were not processing wheat.
Functional medicine is working because it's reflective of the truth. That's the problem with healthcare. Is one of the things that happened is it was, as it became profoundly westernized, is it was no longer reflective of reality. It was not the reason it didn't work People are not buying it anymore, but it also just didn't work. It was reflected. The diagnostic process is not the way the body works. Now, if you get shot, you might want some of that, but
Amen. I'll
This
just.
right,
is solid.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
I've had Western medicine save my life a few
But-
times. Thank
right.
you very much.
yeah, it is. It is.
Time and a place.
So
Yes.
we look at and we treat a lot of babies, and as you guys know, but we think birthing in Peru is probably amazing unless you need an emergency. And so America, I think, could really become the best place for healthcare as it begins to lean into the reality of functional medicine. And so what I'd like to know from you is, like, where'd you get your training for functional medicine? What is that training? Notice that training starts and it never ends.
Yeah.
Whereas like med school kind of ends, like what's this? Where did you get that? Because you've had some training, right?
Yes. So I too, like Michelle, I just utilized a lot of my time researching and just comparing like the medical journals that we would go over in nurse practitioner school, and then just kind of comparing it to like some of the things I would read on functional websites or more holistic websites. It is interesting how much they do actually research like herbs and plants and things like that. So a lot of that is in the medical journals, but so I started there, thousands of hours of studying on my own. And then I really wanted a little more support. And so after researching kind of which school I fit with the best, I did the School of Applied Functional Medicine. And so I'm currently in that right now. So it's kind of like a whole nother degree, because everything you learned in med school, you kind of like just go way deeper and uproot diseases, and you go upstream to figure out, and you keep asking like, why are they having these symptoms, or why are they having this? So a little bit of both of that.
Yeah. And you've also worked, I'm totally interrupting your story, but you've worked with Dr. Gamboa.
Yes.
So take us
Love
through that.
Dr. Gamboa. She's amazing. I say Dr. Gamboa is like the fruit of the spirit. Like, she resembles love, joy, peace, patience. She's just
All
amazing.
doctors should actually learn from her. They should be required to spend a month in her practice.
I agree.
Not that that's possible, but
Yeah, I talk about her all the time. I think she's the most brilliant doctor I've ever met. And actually, Michelle connected me to her. So again, just back to that first appointment at Rick's Chop House, it's just like been such a big part of my journey. And just so honored to be in this space with each of you, who I've learned so much from each of you. But so she connected us, and I waited like 6 months out of grad school and said, I'm not looking at another job because I know that's where I want to be. And finally, when she got around to interviewing and everything, it was just so meant to be. We have a very harmonious relationship, and she taught me so much about like meeting people where they're at. Because some people, just like we all have our own journey of, getting to more holistic health. And so you're at different places at different times. And I know for me, like just over the past like 20 years, it's been like, I call it ditching and switching, like you switch out your cleaner or your shampoo, and just over time, just removing kind of layers of that. And so she had she has an integrative practice. Her patients love her. They've been coming for, 15, 20 years just to see her. They stick with her. And she has done an amazing job at educating them and just really helping them along their own journeys. So that was a big thing for me, because I walked in thinking, oh, this is going to be like all holistic health, and we're going to do all the natural things. But a lot of them just aren't ready for that yet.
Right.
And so just really inspiring them and educating them, and just like, again, meeting them kind of where they're at. So,
Right.
yeah. So I spent almost 2 years with Dr. Gamboa, and it was amazing.
And now you're here at Wonderfully Made. You've been with Wonderfully Made for how long? A
A
month?
month, maybe?
A month?
Yeah.
Well, that's
And she's been finishing with Dr. Gamboa. So,
right. You've been working double time.
I had suddenly needed somebody to come help me, and Juli was the first person I thought of. And so I've had people asking me like, wow, this seems like you had a very sudden transition, and within 2 weeks you were like, you just flipped it and you were right there still moving. And I said, well, I knew the first person I wanted to talk to
Absolutely.
to come work with it. Like, I already knew. I was like, well, to myself in my head, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to talk to Juli. And then John comes in, he's like, you got to talk to Juli. And I said, I
think
know.
what I said
and
is,
then,
no, you call her now, like right now. I'm
well,
got
and
to
then it
grab
was
the
funny
baby
because
and,
Dr. Gamboa called me and she's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Like, are you okay? What's your plan? All of these things. And she said, well, what about Juli? And I said, well, it's a little weird that you're pimping out your own staff. And we laughed. And she goes, she lives all the way over here and she drives all the way over there. And like, I know that she can't keep this up for much longer. And she really wants to do, be in a model of a business like you have. And so I called Juli, and then I actually found Juli's replacement for her. And so then Juli has been helping train her. And so people were a little amazed. I was like, yeah, I just kind of like personally shifted everyone. And that wasn't my plan. It just happened pretty immediately. So
That was important to me too, is just receiving Dr. Gambo's blessing. And so she definitely received that. She's so happy. And she wrote me a card and said, I still get to see you because she's our collaborating physician. So that's awesome.
yes.
that's amazing.
But whenever Michelle called me, it was actually on my birthday this year. And it was just such an awesome gift. It was just so meant to be. And just really excited to, again, shift my focus like primarily on Wonderfully Made and get that going.
Which, I told her I need help with these older kids. The 3.5, I need help with the older kids. And she said, well, the passion is my mother's. I'm like, my mothers are begging for help. In fact, she has been absolutely pummeled, just pummeled with like mothers with complex issues who's like, I haven't found anyone that will even just sit down with me. Just the fact that she's going to sit down with him for an hour and go through everything and ask all the questions, go, okay, this is where you are. This is kind of where we need to be. This is where we're going to start. And we're just going to start going. And they're very, very happy and excited.
The business model that our training has come from has us try to figure out like what do you need or what's your goal. And I remember when we sat down with you and your husband and started asking the question of what did you really want ultimately? And women's health is at some point really important for your future, I guess. And for us, for Michelle and I, it was very much in alignment because at Kikino, we're very mom-centric. Even though we treat babies, I think we treat them expertly. Even when we're treating babies, we're actually focused on moms primarily. And so we loved that about you. We didn't have to like square peg, round hole kind of thing. We was actually in alignment. And so that was a requirement that Michelle and I talked about before we met with you, is that no matter how shiny this object is,
Right.
like we're not going to get distracted by this if it's not in alignment. We're gonna just move on.
So good.
And it was so in alignment. So thank you so much. We've loved working with you guys. What do you guys want what do you want the world to know about your practice? Like if someone's like, well, I wonder if I'd be a good fit there. What would make a good fit for both of you collectively, maybe separately? Let's start there.
I mean, we have talked about this, but, and I'm thinking about a phone consult that I just did this last week, for a mom. In fact, I would have moms beg me like, can we just have a phone consult and I can tell you what's going on with me and like tell you my labs and what I've been told or what I'm going through, like emotionally, all the things. And like, I can't figure out where to start.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but in the end, it's like, and I feel like Juli is the same way, and you can correct me, but it's just all about advocating for each person. That's really the core of what it's about. Is I'm always providing advocacy for people, advocacy for like, what is it that you want, or what is it that you see, or what is it that you want for your child, or what is it that I get the babies where they're like, I'm telling you something is not right.
Right.
And I've been told by 5 pediatricians, all of this is normal. And she's telling me and I'm listening, because most of these people, they're just not listening, right? Okay. I'm listening to what she is saying about the baby and watching the baby, but I'm also 100% believing her that she's in her truth and that this is actually what's going on. And so I need to figure it out, right?
Right.
So, I mean, a good example would be a toddler mom came to me and she said, nobody will listen to me. There's something wrong with this child since she was born. And we've done these kind of little basic labs and these kind of basic labs, and they're fine. And so everybody is ignoring me, but there's something wrong with this kid. And she's explaining all these symptoms, and I'm going, this in my head, I'm going, there's something wrong with this child, right? So I'm like, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to neurology, and then we're going to go to nephrology. Well, I couldn't even get her. I, sent my notes, but I also will type letters on letterhead to the doctor that I'm referring to. Cause you send like a referral sheet that just has basic information, but I will write like,
This is why I'm sending
this is why I'm sending. And like, this is what she's saying. And I'm telling you, we need to look into this, and this is why, and blah, 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 blah. I couldn't even get the kid. The neurologist called in the nephrologist to like, this toddler is diabetes insipidus. So not type 1 diabetes, like high sugar, but I mean, this is a big deal for this baby, and the baby's had it for a long time. And I cannot believe hadn't been hospitalized from some of the episodes that mom had been telling me that she would go in and they would just ignore her. So I always tell people in my office, yes, we're extremely holistic. Yes, I can handle like pretty much almost anything without medications. I'm very much into parental choice. We're a bougie boutique office. Like, it looks like a house. We're not running people through like cattle. But I very often have people bring a baby or a toddler to me to fix something big, or the baby is screaming 18 hours a day for 3 months and nobody can figure it out. And I'm getting those things handled pretty quickly, sometimes with your help, when I'm like 911, this baby has a headache. But they may get that fixed, and they might go back to their traditional office because they want to do their traditional things that I don't do, which is totally fine. That's their choice.
Right.
But in the end, to me, the basic part of it is that I'm always listening and advocating for what is best for the child, which means I'm advocating for what's best for the mom and the whole family.
And you're giving a lot of space for mother's intuition.
Yes.
And that's all of it. Truly. Like, if you look back to the ground, like, they're not wrong. And these women, when they're like, my body, talk to me, like, they know their bodies, they know their babies, they know their children. And you actually give space for that. Y'all give a container for them to come and trust their gut and trust their intuition and trust their bodies. And there's nothing else like that that I have found. It's huge. So,
I had a kid this week. She came in as a toddler, like when we opened, and having problems her whole life. Mom's getting, eventually it'll go away.
It's going to be fine.
Don't worry. And I'm like, I'm listening to her, and I go, well, let me see her mouth. And like, literally I tip her head back and she opens her mouth. I'm like, oh, look at that. She has a cleft palate.
Yeah.
And the mom like looks at me like literally the homeopathist found this. And I talked to her this week. I said, it's so funny. Remember you wrote that on, I don't have intake paperwork anymore because I get so much more just listening and like feeling the mom and the intuition or whatever. But she wrote it on the paperwork, and it did not land in my brain because this was a toddler and there had been no surgery history or whatever. So it didn't stick, And then I just saw it, and she's like, yeah, I wrote them. Like, you did, didn't you? And I go, and it didn't stick because there's been how did this happen? Because she had been ignored. Well, fast forward this last week, she's like, can I please have a phone consult with you? Because I'm really at a crossways with this child and her care and where we're going, and I can't figure out what to do.
Right.
And I'm like, sure. Like, that's advocacy case. I will take the advocacy case. Long story short, I pointed out things to her about how the children's system works, how it doesn't work. Just because you're cash pay and he does decide to take you back in and you pay him $1,000 doesn't mean he's going to talk to the orthodontist. You call the manager. Is he going to talk to the orthodontist that needs to expand this child's palate?
Right.
Or is he not? Like, how much money and time are we wasting? And she sent me a message and she goes, oh yeah. She said, no, that's his choice. He doesn't have to. And I said, well, my favorite thing is to pit Medical City Dallas Children's against Children's Dallas, because Children's Dallas is taking everyone for their money. And Medical City Dallas doctors, for the most part, like, love to come in and be the hero when they've jumped system. Right. And she goes, I just can't believe. She goes, I mean, I think you just saved me like money and time and anger and what, and
Trauma.
she's like, it never occurred to me to do that. Right. And so that's what I tell people, like, I'm not always 100. I'm not always magic. I'm not always 100% right, but I usually know enough about the system to keep you going, so you're not wasting all of this time and
Michelle,
money.
you're really good at producing order.
Right.
And there's something about functional medicine that there might be more than one path that could work, but there's only one path that works best. And so what a practitioner, even if you were to consider massage therapy and advanced touch like we do as functional touch, there's an order that if we can affect things in a certain order, then the patient's going to respond more quickly. And so one of the things we tell, and sometimes when we're referring to you and it's an emergency, one of the things I will say to get them to finally understand that, look, you wouldn't be talking to me about this if you were already her patient. And it's not just either of you. And so
I think, I tell people, I'm like, so you're at that spot, you're about to throw 8 balls in the air and watch them bounce all over the place and be very exhausted and broke.
Right.
right.
They're like,
All at
yes,
once.
that is what
Yeah.
I'm about to do. I'm like, don't do that.
Well, a
Right.
lot of them come to us because they've just done that and they
Right.
need a plan. And you and I have talked about this too, how a lot of them will come to you with these complex situations. And there's something in medicine, it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the very bottom is like food,
Do you have food, clothing, shelter, water?
Safety.
Yeah.
Physical
And-
safety.
and safety. And so you're just like, you help, like for me, I help a lot of moms, like just start there at those basic, simple lifestyle things and just help them get a really solid like foundation is set. And I think a lot of it too, a lot of our vision is in the name, Wonderfully Made Wellness Sanctuary. And, we believe that you're supposed to be in this balance. Your body can and will be healed, and you're wonderfully made. And so that's huge. And two of my core values, and I know you value just knowing you, is health and growth. And so that's just a lot of what we pour into, we grow in.
You also apply that to yourself, though, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, like I said, so you guys were in that growth and development. Like I'm in one called Mastermind. And so we talk a lot about just developing your core values and what matters most to you. And so that's something that my husband and I have been focusing on. Like we have our family core values. And so when our children or us, we do things, we're like, hey, but does this align with what matters most? Does this align with our vision? Because vision comes first, and then structure, and then culture. And so I think, like you were saying, order matters, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are you aiming at? If you don't even know what you're aiming at, you're definitely not going to make a good plan to get there.
Well, and you and I have talked a lot about that this is actually an advocacy practice. Yes. End of story. Like, and that you could really see that during COVID when you shifted gears, you started doing something very different. When you started advocating directly to hospitals for patients that were being, kidnapped patients, things like that.
That was wild. I mean, I've been providing advocacy services for, postpartum, newborn nursery, NICU, labor and delivery, all for, since I was pregnant with Julia. Julia is going to be 9. So nobody knew what a private patient advocate was back then. And I remember people going in the hospital, I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm like, oh, it is. I'm like, I made it up. Okay. And so then Dr. Artis, I'm on his show and we're talking about advocacy. And now there are certification programs for patient advocacy. And that's one of those things where I consider that to be part of my legacy, but nobody will ever know that it's part of my legacy. And I don't care. Right? Because it's something that needed to be, and now it is thanks to COVID. But, I did hire private patient advocates specifically for COVID patients during that time. And then when that kind of all died down, a lot of them it was brutal. It was a brutal thing to be involved in. A lot of them were ready to take a break. And the ones that wanted to keep going, I called Priscilla at Graith Care and I said, I have an idea. I think Wonderfully Made should partner with Graith Care on patient advocacy, except for I want you guys to do all the work, which of course she was fine with. And I love Priscilla, but I'm like, I've done what I need to do. We saved a lot of lives. I like shaped a lot of things going on in the country. Priscilla and I both did. And now I'm going to go back to focusing on what it is I'm meant to focus on. Right. So.
Amazing. So, you have kids. How many kids do you have? Tell us about your family situation.
So I've got 3 kids. I have an interesting age gap, just like you
Yeah,
guys.
so do we.
So Caleb, he's 15, and then I have Grady, who's almost 5, and Olivia's almost 3. And they all are just so unique and so special. It's one of my favorite things is being a mama, and I think that's my first ministry is my home, and which is why I love you guys, like how you guys value family dynamic, and that's been kind of a thing that we discussed too. It was like important, as you mentioned alignment earlier. Is John and Michelle were like, we're not like working to just be away from our families all the time. Like we're not just going to work sun up to sundown, and so that was really important to me too. So
I really liked how your husband, he was being the leader, right? He's immediately going, what are the hours? And like, what are the situations with the...
Are you talking about when we met with them?
Yes. Like, what's the situation with the schedule? I'm like, well, what do you, like, what does your family need? And what do your children need?
Right.
Well, it would be great if, I dropped, husband drops Grady off and mom comes and picks him up whenever pre-K is over. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's if I'm advocating for other mothers to be the best mom they can be and that they should be able to do for their children what they need to do, then we need to be able to do the same thing for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And there is not anyone else out there doing that, at least not in the Metroplex. You can say that you're holistic. I'm going to use quotations. You're integrative, whatever it is you're doing, but you're cattle driving, you're 15 minutes, you are seeing patients from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, taking call in the middle of the night, waking up to answer phones, like all of those things. And that's not what a lot of my moms want for their families and for themselves. And some do that, which is fine. But I need what I need for my family, and that's not what works for me. And so, immediately I was telling them, like, whatever it is you need to do, I just tell the moms, I'm like, I have 3 kids that still live at home, and 1 is an infant, and 2 of them are homeschooled. Right. And so, like, don't show up here thinking you're going to replace such and such supplement, right, and then I'm going to be here, like, text me first.
Yeah.
And it was important. So I loved that he came right out of the gate with that.
Oh yeah, that's so my husband. I was laughing too when we met because John runs a Kikino massage school, like very well-oiled machine massage school. Like it's amazing, and he's very business oriented. And then my husband's very, very strong business oriented. And me and Michelle were like, we just want to just love on babies and mamas, and like, and they're like, but wait, what's the alignment?
Yeah,
what's the vision? And what's going?
Right.
Like this is gonna be awesome. Yeah,
you need both.
Well,
it's balance.
Absolutely, and I think the vision is important, yes. And sometimes the vision kind of shows up first, and sometimes, like in our case, the 4 of us, is the vision kind of has been developing, like as we've worked together, we've kind of had a vision that surfaced out of the work rather than just something that we fabricated, and so Megan and I have worked with moms a lot, and you guys send us babies, but you're actually sending us a mom. And at Kikino Institute of Healing, we honor mothers. It's just I can't even stress that enough. How important that is to us, isn't it?
It is, and they are surprised over and over and over. They're like, "Wait, I'm getting treated first." Like even though I know the front office told them, and y'all maybe told them too, but they're like, but wait, like I need to take off my shoes and I need to get on the table. Like, are you sure?
That's so true.
Yeah.
And like over and over and over, and I'm like, no, like we hit 3 different points, and we all you've heard, no, you're first.
Well, even as practitioners, we need the body work and the craniosacral therapy too sometimes. And just going through this transition, I went to Kikino and I was getting some CST, craniosacral therapy. And I was just telling Marnie about how the last time I'd come, the appointment was for Olivia. And I'm like, I should have known better, because both Megan and John were like, you first. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot how that worked. But whatever my daughter had, she was 2 at the time. And so we were still nursing. And it was really what I had, like, built up in my chest and my neck. And so you guys worked on me, and it solved whatever she had
helped
going
her,
on.
didn't
She
it? Yeah.
and she is an empath very much, and very intuitive, and so she's like reflecting constantly and mirroring. And so but that's what's so powerful about you guys. I know many people, the duos come in, the parent and child come in, and you guys work on parents first, and that's when they really become like believers in your work and the energy and what you all do. So
That's an incredible opportunity as a parent to be able to actually affect change for our children, right? Like, we all want to do the hard work for our kids. Like, we don't, none of us want them to hurt or have challenge or strife, but like, we can see the growth opportunity, obviously. But like, to be able to take that and be like, oh, actually, this is mine to work on. This is my stuff. This is, it's opportunity, right? And then it's a deeper way to come back. And then even if it's your toddler, if it's your baby, if it's your 12-year-old, to connect with them and bond with them in a different way.
absolutely.
That's holistic.
I mean, I joke with the moms. We're like, the baby, do this. We're making appointments for like all the kids. And I joke, I tell them, like, do as I say, not as I do. Like, this morning, the children asked for supplements, and I lined them up and I gave them all their supplements, and I got to my desk and I sat down and I went, why didn't I take my supplements?
At the same
I
time.
literally was standing right there, but we're like, check for the kids, and then we just move on.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we do forget about ourselves. And yes, I do tell the mothers that they're going to be worked on. You are also, we're going to get worked on.
Right.
And they're like, what? I'm like, okay, so I mean, if you're down here, I can't get the baby up here, right? Like the baby can only, like, you have to get up here and then the baby can rise to you, but there's no possible way for the baby to be higher than you are.
Right.
I have to use my hands. And they're like, okay. But even then, you're still so focused on the baby. Like, when we get in there, they're going to work on the baby, and this baby is going to be happy and not scream at me for 22 hours a day. And I think their brains just automatically flip back.
I had a dad on the phone recently that was answering because mom wasn't doing very well. And he said, I have one question. Why do you need to treat my wife? And I said, have you noticed that when she's not doing very well, you're not doing very well? And he said, that covers it. Thank you. It was the funniest moment. That's all it took. I thought it was about in for an argument, but no, that was all it took.
Yeah.
Accurate.
So, and it's so true. We have a lot of times in session, we have mothers start to break through maybe like emotionally, or something lets go of her, so to speak, and the baby gets quiet. And she notes that. She always notes. She like, you watch her like, where's the baby? Moms they always know where their babies are, right?
Right. Or the baby falls asleep.
Right.
Like they've
So,
just got relief.
Okay, so that I heard a noise and thought it was Michael signaling me, and it was the dog at the back
It's
door.
the German Shepherd at the back door knocking.
By the way, we're in our home.
Yes.
The reason
I went to go let the chickens out, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to come right to the windows and be like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." And I was like, nope, just leave them over. They can go free range. Yeah.
We're here because if it needed to be a Sunday in our home, or it was going to be like 2026 before you get the four of us in one room together.
That's accurate.
So,
Yeah.
So, hierarchy of needs. And that's really what mom's care is about. Is mom's like water and shelter. And
They'll feed everyone but themselves.
yeah, they'll
every
feed
time.
and so
Yeah.
I like that you brought that up, because that's very much true. The model is not applied correctly frequently. I had someone come into the office. It's been a while. This gentleman came in who had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and he was pretty agitated about it, and he was pretty sick. And full diagnosis, medications, and everything. And in my quizzing him, talking to him, by the way, not just writing down a bunch of stuff, I was actually listening. I realized that I was trying to find out how much water he drank. Like, really, because he seemed so dehydrated, his body, just the way he looked. He finally, out of agitation, answered me and said, I drink nothing but tea and coffee. And yet he got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is exactly the same symptoms as dehydration. So he's doing better. He likes water, it turns out.
Amazing.
He doesn't actually like water, but he is drinking water regardless. So.
Tolerating it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've run into it more and more. Like, I'm checking with moms before we actually start the appointment. I'm like, did you pee? And when's the last time you drank some water? And more often than not, the first 5 minutes of our appointment is the mom going, okay, no, hold the baby, please. I really do need to pee. Like, but they've been so hyper-focused that they come in, or like we're actually in it. Like, before I learned to actually check, because this is happening so frequently, mom's like, and I'm like, is your bladder full? She's like, yeah, like to bursting.
Right.
Wow.
And I'm like, why didn't you pee? She's like, I didn't even think about it. I was so focused on coming in and telling you what's going on with my baby and getting some help and getting some relief that, like, literally I'm going to pee on myself on your table. And then, like, she has to pop up and go. And I'm like, get some water while you're out there. I need to have a snack basket at this point.
Right.
Like, they're like, have you actually eaten anything at all today? No, I bet they haven't, taking supplements for so many of these families, like, they're in the trenches. And we know what it's like to be in the trenches of parenthood, trying to navigate, especially trying to navigate in the holistic health system.
Yes.
Like, it's, oh my God.
I think I spent a lot of my own health journey realizing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's such a big part of our mission now is the moms come in and it's like, you might be toxin free, you might be eating right, although maybe not eating enough.
They'll tell you all the things that they're not eating.
Right. But what are they eating? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very little.
But then stress is kind of where I was leading to, is just so many people have stress. And it's like, okay, we all have it. You can't really avoid it, but how do you mitigate it? What are you doing as far as your lifestyle to address it and just kind of decompress and marginalize and just start to shift your thinking to, like, I do need to go out in the sun. I do need to, like, maybe do a little bit of grounding and get barefoot, or just journaling. Maybe taking the time to take a bath. Like, these are all things that I think mamas we don't do as we're rearing children. And so that was a part of my own personal journey is I wasn't eating. I was nursing a baby. I was going upstairs to study in my office, grad school. And then I'd drink a protein shake. Michelle would be not very happy about that.
You chewed it though, right?
You chewed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
an apple. And so, and it's just like, and all this weight started coming off, and I'm like, you just get to a point where, like, and then my stress hormones were, just jacked up. And, it's like, okay, I need to walk the walk. Like, that's important. That's been a big mission of mine, is like, I really want to do what I ask my patients to do. And so now I eat eggs in the morning and avocados and beans and get my fiber in, and just really make sure that I prioritize variety and protein and just taking care of myself, And I think that's where we can help a lot of women too, is just kind of, that's why I say the Maslow's hierarchy. It's like just down there at the bottom, like just helping women come up with a plan, and they feel better almost instantly.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, like, we've only got 60 ounces of water hidden awkwardly behind this plant here right now. So, I mean, like, we're all giving good effort, like, to walk the walk, talk the talk. Like, it's huge though, but it's the simple stuff.
Well,
more often than not.
My husband says, don't take financial advice from the milkman, or, it's funny, but I want practitioners in my life who are actually living it out.
Absolutely. Someone who has the knowledge base, can talk the book smarts, but actually has integrated into their lifestyle. Like, because then I mean, how many things have come up for you guys that you're like, oh, I know exactly what that is. But in your brain being like, because I literally have lived it.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I need to find a better way to say this, but I tell parents, I'm like, I think God tortures me for a reason. Yeah. Like,
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, yep.
There we
you
go
wanted
again.
to have, like, the all natural delivery and then had a C-section? Definitely did that.
Check.
Oh, your baby is destroying your nipples? Yep. Oh, your milk supply disappeared because whatever,
Yeah.
had to work through that too. Like, I literally, when I'm asking you to triple feed your baby, I know what I'm asking.
Absolutely.
I
'Cause
know
you've
what I'm
lived it.
asking, right? And
Oh, yeah.
I have an unusual amount of empathy for triple feeding.
as you should.
And I didn't do it. I didn't do it, but it's a lot. It's a lot on a family. I can't imagine what it's like.
I tell families that frequently. I'm like, look, she would not have recommended this to you unless it was actually essential, because she knows what this does. I know what this does. Like, this is going to be brutal. So let's talk about how much water you're drinking before you start. Like, it's legit.
Yeah. Megan, you have a special relationship with these two.
I do.
First of all,
You can call it that.
those of you that don't know.
Very personal.
Such a personal relationship. Yeah.
So those of you that don't know, Megan is a body worker, a master level therapist at Kikino. You are a midwife, a nurse, pelvic floor therapist. Did I miss something?
She's the vagina whisperer.
The vagina whisperer.
That's
so
gonna get a bumper sticker.
She was at least one of the midwives in both of your last births. And so I don't know. I just would like to open that up. I think that was I was at one of those.
Yeah.
And so
I wasn't.
So Megan had a student at an amazing midwife in training, and it came down to my delivery day, and I was on my third child. I'm not sure about the other mom, but the other mom had vocalized like she really wanted Megan. But I was like, I'll take your amazing, like, bright student. She was just so energetic, and I loved that. And when we got to the delivery room, she was just like in her zone and totally respected our space. And it was such an amazing experience. So it just worked out the way it was supposed to. But up until then, Megan had done all my prenatal visits. And I remember for the first time experiencing like true informed consent. And that was so powerful when someone sits down and goes over each of these lines and says like, this is what this for, this is what this is for.
What do you want to do?
But what do you want to do?
This is your choice.
Absolutely.
Did you find yourself at times asking for her recommendation, or were these all things you already knew?
I think in the pregnancy OB world, I think some of the things I was like, my previous births, like I wasn't offered that kind of information.
Right.
So it was a little mix of both.
Yeah.
But she had great wisdom and insight on a lot of like just the symptoms I would have when I was pregnant. Like she was, you had recommended Dr. Maskey, the chiropractor, and she so this is interesting. So how our children, and when you're pregnant, you kind of reflect the same symptoms. But I was pregnant with Olivia, and Dr. Maskey muscle tested me because I was having bad heartburn. And she's like, you're showing for dairy, which I had had my whole life and never had problems. And it turns out it was my daughter.
Yes.
Who's highly, highly sensitive, came out that way. So, but yeah, Megan just informed consent and just really insightful and very intuitive. So
thank you. It was absolutely an honor. It's the only time I've ever had two at once, like two births at one time. So, and that's actually a collaborative provider that I work, an IBCLC that I work really closely with now too. So it was a heck of a day, but y'all delivered 13 minutes apart. So one was home birth, one was birth center. But and you, I also know we're all quite close here, guys.
Right.
That's great.
So you were actually at our birth.
I was, yes. Your last
Megan
one.
was really helpful at our birth. You were not the primary midwife, but came in a pinch, and it really made a difference.
Well, super honored to be there.
Yeah.
Megan spent quite a bit of time holding she had her hand up there holding like a band of scar tissue or something out of the way while I was pushing for a very long time.
Was she intravaginally at that time? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, she was just up there, and then eventually
Doing
she's
the
the
thing.
one that wiggled Victoria's linebacker shoulders out of my body.
Yes.
They're
That's so
they're
true.
just sticky. It's fine.
Just a sticky shoulder.
Just
It's
a
fine.
sticky.
Just fine. And she's almost one.
And
Like,
she's still massive.
she's huge.
Yeah, she's gonna be 1 in 4 days.
That's God. How's that possible?
I know. I need
Yeah.
a do-over. That's just like
it's been spoken.
I know. I'm like, wait.
flew by. No, I mean on the last year.
Right.
On the last
Okay.
year. Yeah. No, I like a do-over in the last year. Like it just went blink and it was
Yeah.
over.
And John is speechless.
John's like, I need to retire one day. I'm like, it'll be fine.
Be fine. Just keep going.
We appreciate you guys being here.
See, I made him speechless.
Yeah, you did. I hadn't thought what it would be like to podcast Michelle, but it's interesting. It's got a different vibe to it. But thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I do appreciate it. What do you guys want everybody to know? You got any last thoughts?
What about you?
Tell us about your desires for your future. Like, throw that out there for us.
Oh yeah. So I mentioned that I'm in that kind of mastermind group, and every time I leave, it's just a group of really amazing, high level entrepreneurs and just all growth minded, and
It's very spiritual practice there too, right?
it is.
good for you.
It's like a Christian mastermind, and so every time I leave, I'm so inspired. It's just really ambitious. Group of people. And so the last time I left in January, I had written down this whole vision of like what I want in the future. And it was primarily just a wellness center. And I wrote where women are empowered and God is honored. And that's just, and I wrote down like all the holistic things that I wanted to include. And, you know, it's so just the timing of that and how like I was concerned with, because my husband is like, go, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait, like, what about the patients? What if you only have like 2 in a day? Or, you know, and where should the building be and what building? And I had written down downtown on a square somewhere is where I wanted. And I've been to some holistic clinics that are actually in a house, and I just adore that. I think it makes people feel like they're at home kind of, so they're more comfortable. But so I wrote all this down, and then fast forward just a couple months, and that's when you called. And so I think all the gaps were filled in this opportunity because you already had the building, you already had a lot of the patients with the kids, and then I'm bringing my fingerprint and my 1% to the table, and I just think we align again, like you said, in our values, and I'm just looking forward to helping a lot of the moms that are bringing their kids to you, but like haven't really taken care of themselves. Yeah. And that really touches me when I can help people. And, you know, not just to like throw a diagnosis or tell them about a procedure or prescription, like, you know, because that doesn't empower anyone is receiving this big diagnosis. Like I'm like, hey, let's heal. Let's like peel back the layers and like get a good plan in place. And I'll just join arms, and it'll be like a partnership, and I'll come alongside you. And if you go out and you're the scientist and you bring me back all this data, and then if it doesn't work, we'll figure out a new plan. So,
do you find that most of what people show up with is correctable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a fundamental part of our practice as well, is that we don't talk about things we can't fix. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of because we've done that for so long, it's kind of not even on our radar. Like, we're just looking for what we're asking in that therapeutic model, what's correctable. Mm-hmm. Functional medicine's a lot like that, isn't it?
A lot like that. Like, why tell someone, okay, well, you have Hashimoto's
on a Friday at 4, by the way. That's what we always hear. Maybe it's lupus. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. But how about like, okay, so your labs, your thyroid antibodies are high. A lot of times the thyroid antibodies are not even looked at, unfortunately, or they'll come to us and they've been high, but it was never addressed or something.
Well, there's not a pill for that. Mm-hmm. There's not a pill for that. So why draw the
better not
lab? And
look.
if they did get drawn, what difference does it make?
because there's not a pill for
there's
that.
not a pill for that. So
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Just skip it.
You know, bringing nutrients on board and working on their immune function and their minerals and food and water.
Take
and
the triggers away.
Yeah.
Emotions. Something that Megan and
huge.
I like. I mean, 100% of our appointments with struggling moms, especially around thyroid, are carrying a significant trauma from their mother, usually. Something related to their mother. Because it usually lands in the left side of the throat. It's fascinating, though.
Yes.
And by the way, it's correctable.
That is correct.
You'd have to touch it, though. Like, and so
Well,
we do.
Nobody touches. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys touch because you're body workers, right? And I think that's why we have so many people now talking about, oh, body work changed my life. You should have body work. And then more people go in and say, oh, this has been life changing for me. And it's because nobody is touching anyone.
Right.
And the providers are not touching the patients either.
Right.
You know, like I had somebody come in with an infant that had been going to another holistic office in the area, and I had the baby on the changing table and was like moving and stretching and like showing them all of these things, and you could tell they were looking at each other and they're like, this is completely different.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you know, so people need, you know, but I tell them all the time, I don't care what you call it.
Yeah.
Should I go to this neuropsychologist, or should we get tested for autism for the 2-year-old? I'm like, I don't really care. I don't care what you call it. They can name it whatever they want. It has nothing to do with how we're going to unravel it.
That's nice.
If that's what you need,
You're in the
like if
wrong
you
office,
need
so-
that, you can go do that
Right.
somewhere,
Yeah.
you know, but I don't really care.
Well, you've
It makes-
always said
it doesn't
that
make a
too.
difference to me.
Like, you're like, why does everyone flu test and COVID test and do all the nose swab, you know, the tests? It's like, it's a virus. You're going to treat it the same. You've always
Right.
said that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something I've noticed is that all three of you are moms, and if one of your kids are hurt, what do you do? What do you do first?
I pray over them.
You touch them, though.
Yeah, you
Yes,
go
You
straight
put
to
your-
them.
you
touch
don't
them
deny
first.
them
Yes.
touch and start praying. Like you're
Right.
hands on and praying
Absolutely.
and connecting, and that's the proper order. That doesn't change as we get older. We don't suddenly need something else first. And what I like about your practice is it's very much like touch, even though sometimes you're just interacting with someone without physically contacting them. They still experience being touched. They experience that it's touching, or that even energetically praying over someone's actually energetic contact, right?
Yes.
It's the ultimate energy, but it's like it's a form of contact, and so touch is really important, and it's made this 4 of us working together really easy for us because we don't have to convince you guys of that. But what about you, Michelle? What do you need people to know about your practice?
Well, just like I said before, we're the one and the only. You know how, I don't know if they talk about this in Mastermind, but in Influential You, they say you could be the first, but when you're the first, a lot of people are going to pop up and they're going to try to be you,
Right.
which I 100% have going on right now.
Right.
Having been opened for, I guess it'll be 4 years in September.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of people that pop up and it's like, well, you were the first, but we're going to replicate. Like, I'm a nurse practitioner. I own my business.
Right.
I'm integrative. I'm holistic, or, you know, whatever it is. And I'm like, great, but do you stand up and exert yourself or insert yourself with a mother or for a mother, depending on her personality when needed? Like, are you advocating for that person? Do you have balls?
Can you go to bat?
Like, can you go to bat? 100%. The answer is no.
Right.
No, nobody is going to bat.
Nobody's sticking their neck out.
If you want to, if the ones that are coming forward, they want to come up and I will keep moving to be the only me. Been like that my whole life, but I would love for somebody to chase me on that.
Absolutely.
Like I quadruple dog dare you to chase me on that one. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, I say she's born with a steel backbone.
That's what I once got an award. I remember Karen made these words that in the hospital for having a titanium steel rod for a backbone.
Yeah.
You know, and I even remember we were at with the neonatology group, and of course, like, I'm not an Oprah fan, but they gave me the Oprah award. Remember one year at the Christmas party, because I own more land than everyone else by a lot, because they're all city people. Okay.
Right.
And that I will stand up for anyone. Like, she will throw it down anytime she feels the need to throw it down. Like, this isn't right. She's going to do it. I don't know how they came up with Oprah, but you know what I mean?
You
It's
guys
like,
are a lot alike.
I've just always been like that, you know, and I need help. It's like when I had the COVID patient advocates and I had Maggie, she was my lead advocate because she will throw it down at a moment's notice any day or time you let her know if somebody in the medical field or a provider is being harassed or wronged, like she is going to be there and she's going to make sure that they're taken care of and get what they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's passion.
Yeah.
Well, and that passion comes out in a lot of different personalities. Your personality is a throw it down personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there are some
Works out.
personalities that that's not the method they're going to use. There's some personalities that are going to bring unity together. They're going to bring people together. They're going to there's a lot of liking involved, like a lot of right? And all of those personalities are important in healthcare.
Yeah.
And sometimes there needs to be the steel rod for a
And
spine.
even if you are like what can I do for you? Let me give you a hug, liking person. Like if you're in what we're in right now with everything going on in Western medicine and all of this stuff going out there, like there are 100% of the time, if you're dealing with my clientele, there's going to be a moment where you're going to have to find it in yourself to stand up and go, no, specialist so-and-so, like you are going to pay attention to this. If you're not, we're going to go to this system.
right.
You know what I mean? Like you still have to be able to do that if you are going to truly be a holistic provider that is advocating for people up against the chaos that
So
we're
no
dealing
matter
with
what
out
your
there.
personality is,
You
you're going to have to
find
cop an
it.
attitude.
Not everyone, like we can't be full of a world of me's. That would be awful. You know, like we can't all be like, I'm down for a fight. Let's do it. Like you
and
can't.
don't touch me. Right?
Yeah. We can't have all the people like that, but every personality, if you were in the vision that we're in and you're really trying to help these moms and you're really trying to help their kids, there are moments where you're going to have to stand up
Yes. Always.
and have some exertion or draw a line or a boundary or whatever it is. Like you're just going to have to, because the Western world and the medical boards, they don't like us. And they don't like, the pharmaceutical companies, they don't like healing. They don't like diseases going away. They don't like the word cured. We have to say reverse. I mean, all of this stuff is what families that are coming to an office like mine, like they're done with that.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes you have something going on, like we said, thank you for saving my life when I needed my life saved. But there are sometimes that we need those people, but we need to check them because they need to do their job and they need to not be an asshole.
Right.
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 So
Well,
So happy you provide that service.
absolutely. Thank you.
Top notch. And we're happy you've joined too. Because like collaboratively, oh my God. Amazing.
This is a dream team.
yeah.
Fantastic.
So,
I'm
well,
excited to get some traction and build it up and make it amazing.
so what's the best way for for people to get a hold of you?
www.wmwsanctuary.com.
Okay.
So Wonderfully Made Wellness Sanctuary, but you can shorten it to wmwsanctuary.com.
Okay.
Or you can call 469-631-0023 and leave a message. We don't have a front desk. Front desks are awful.
No.
And they exist to block you from your provider. So please leave a message. I will get a text about it. I will get an email about it.
And then actually contact
And
them.
then one of us will contact you personally. Yes.
I like that. That's great because front offices are designed to like gatekeep.
Yes.
Correct.
Right. That's amazing. I've not heard you say that before. I mean, I know it's true because you have a phone in front of you all the time because there's a lot of people that
Well,
need you,
we've
right?
talked about, one day if there were too many good providers who were too busy and we're raising our children and stuff that we would consider having a like a provider patient liaison.
Yeah, like a patient advocate. I mean, a patient liaison.
A
yeah.
patient liaison who their whole purpose is to get you to the provider.
Not to block you from.
Not
the
to
provider.
block you from the provider, which is what all of the other desks are for.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Okay, so you guys, you know how to get a hold of them. Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much.